You look like you've got it all together, but inside you're exhausted, craving escape, and wondering when you disappeared from your own life. And the moment you try to do something for yourself, the mum guilt hits. In this episode, you'll hear why feeling angry doesn't mean you're failing. It might just be the sign you've been missing. And how having something that's yours could be the very thing that brings you back home to yourself. You're listening to Confessions of a Working Mum. Let's open this conversation up properly. Hello and welcome to Confessions of a Working Mum, the space where we get honest about the beautiful, messy reality of modern motherhood, ambition and everything in between. I'm your host, Michelle Akester-Marsh, founder of Unshakable Mama. I'm a life coach and healer, wife and mum, and family-focused feminist, supporting working mums to reconnect with more calm, confidence and self-trust so they lead themselves and their families with more presence, ease and joy. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Iris Whitelock from Australia, who has courageously stepped forward to help shift the story for other working mums and their families, one mum, one boundary, one belief shift at a time. So welcome, Iris. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's an absolute joy to have you here. Would you like to share a little bit about your background, who you are, how old your kids are, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I had my first child when I was 39, and then I had two more after that. So they were squeezed into a short amount of time, 3 years. It was very, very busy when they were younger. And I had help. We engaged a nanny so that I would stay sane because after the first child, I was diagnosed with postnatal depression. And that was a surprise to me because I felt I was angry rather than sad. So I didn't think anger was a kind of was a symptom of depression. So anyway, I learned quite a lot. And I was just thinking today about how the doctor that I saw who said, I think you're depressed, a woman, she said, Iris, I don't think there's anything as difficult as bringing up kids. She said, my medical degree was easy in comparison, Yeah. And that was just such a lovely, reassuring thing. Yeah. So, So anyway, my kids are now in their late 20s, 30. They're around 30, 31. And I retrained as an art therapist when I've been mostly the kind of work I'd done before I got married. I decided to have kids when I was going to have kids and I wanted to be at home with them. And it was only when they were a little bit older that I started doing some community arts projects and working with arts groups and arts organisations to do a little bit. But and that was interesting too, because one of my daughters said to me, Mummy, when you do all your artwork, you just forget about us. And that, talk about pulling all the maternal guilt strings, that was really quite challenging. But when I was 57, I retrained as an art therapist. It was just an inkling that I had this was something that would be good for me. And and then a couple of years after qualifying, I set up my own business, my own practice as an art therapist, and then I decided to train with an American organization that was called Feminine Power at the time. They've changed now, but they are women-centered, and they're all about helping women to find out, to self-realize really is the way that it was put there. And that's what really inspired me. And I knew I could use the art therapy with other people in the same way that I'd used it for me to expand and grow and discover my own creativity, which had been pushed down for, since I was 8, basically.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as somebody who's been on the receiving end of your art therapy as well, and I'm somebody who always thinks, oh, I can't draw and I'm really rubbish at art or whatever. It doesn't matter, does it? And the amazing insights I received from doodling and doing my drawings and
Yeah.
using different color and using your prompts and everything. It was so powerful, real deep
Yes.
dive. So yeah,
Well,
now I can
yeah.
see why
I
you
mean,
get lost, lost
yeah,
in art.
and yes, and before that, before I decided to do the art therapy, I'd actually walked into an exhibition. I was following that book called The Artist Way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and one of the things is to take yourself on a date every
mm-hmm.
week, on your own. And so I was doing that, and that was while my lovely nanny was looking after the kids. So I'd take myself, and I mostly went to galleries, and I discovered a gallery, an exhibition called Catalyst. And I was quite surprised when I walked in there to find all this amazing sewing, things that have been artwork made from stitching. It was just incredible. And so I talked to the woman at the desk and I said, are you one of the artists? Yes. Oh, I want to do this, but I haven't got any, I said to her, I haven't got any artistic education at all. I stopped when I was about 8. And she said, don't worry about that. She said, I'm just a housewife. And I thought at the time that was a terrible put down of herself, but it was also so reassuring to me. And then, a few years, so I played around with the textile art and I did a bit of sculpting and some with stone and a bit of painting, just exploring, really, having fun with it and not having any expectations of something looking fabulous. And a few years later, that's when I had this inkling, do art therapy, Iris. Yeah, so that was
That's
that journey.
incredible. I want to home in there on the releasing the expectations. That is it's a powerful thing that we need to do more of, isn't it? Releasing expectations.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing a bit about your background. And you mentioned about art as almost an escapism. How did it feel when your daughter said that? And when you were diving into it?
Yeah, I sort of understood her because growing up, my mother had been absolutely, she was, I suppose, a frustrated musician. She would have liked to just play the piano all day and she very rarely got a chance. We were always, mum, 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 there were 5 of us. So she, I could sort of understand how my daughter was feeling because I used to feel sort of shut off and pushed away when mum was right involved with playing the piano. So I understood that. But I also knew that the art was a lifesaver, really, and it didn't only help me in my life with me, it was good for my kids too.
Yeah.
And what was lovely was that we were growing together in terms of them, they'd say, hey, mummy, can you draw a shark? Or can you draw what was the other thing they did lots of? Birds. And I had no idea really how to, but I thought I'm not going to let them hear what I used to hear from my mother, which was, oh, I can't draw. So I just wouldn't say that. And I'd just find a way to draw something. And they were always really happy with it. And then they grew up just doing art really naturally. It was just something that they enjoyed. And yeah. So,
and do they use it as a form of escapism now, or as like just literally just a creative outlet?
No, one daughter. I don't know about escapism and a creative outlet. To me, they're sort of the same. But one daughter, my oldest daughter, has got a very left brain kind of job. She does a lot of organising and she runs micro courses at a university. She has to organise them all, so she's got spreadsheets, all this stuff, and she does the most gorgeous little drawings, very tiny. Like some kids will go through that stage where everything is very small, and she, she's 31, she still does those, and that is her release. My other daughter is into photography and video and acting, so that's her expression.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about my son. He's more in. Yeah, I think he expresses himself through film, probably more than anything. Yeah.
So would you say then that by you went into art as your creative outlet and just a way to, you know, just to do something that you really enjoyed and to connect with yourself. And would you say then that would you say it was a stress relief for you as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then would you say that you've taught your kids by prioritizing that for yourself, you've then taught your kids a way to relieve their stress as well? Would
Yeah,
you
I hope
say
so.
that? Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they seem to be so overloaded with things, but an early stress release thing that I did where I started running when I was about 28 or something, and I loved that. And that was just a really good. I was doing some work at the time with a very frustrating, annoying person, and it to be able to go and stomp, you know, and get it out of my system. That was really, really good. And I got very fit too, which I loved.
Amazing.
So yeah, and I did a bit of yoga, and my daughters do yoga and a bit of running and martial arts and that sort of thing. So it's using the physical, and I guess that's the thing is, you know, we've got so much in the way of things we can use as a whole human being. So, you know, the physical is so important, the creative, you know, the mental and emotional, the creative and the physical help with the mental and emotional. So they're really important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. So what would you say your biggest confessions are as a mum? Like, talk us through how you felt during that juggle, that work life, work family life balance juggle, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. It was quite difficult at times because there inevitably are going to be choices between, you know, what I want to do and what I've made commitments to other people to do, and then what I'm going to do for my kids, what they need, you know. But I guess later on, when they were in their late teens and things, when I went back into a regular job, it was flexible enough for me to take out time if I needed to. That there was a lot of pressure there, but it was, I know that I could have, if I needed to, and when I needed to, I could take time out.
Yeah.
But I think I had such an ingrained, what do they call it? It's not workaholism. It's although that's close. It's the Protestant work ethic is the thing, you know, where your work is so important. Loyalty to your job is so important. Loyalty to the other people in the job. And most jobs, I was just listening to something the other day, was saying they're not well designed. They have got actually too much work to be done within what's possible, the possible time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I was going to say, so how did that align with the family life then? If you were so loyal to your work and you really threw yourself into your work, how did that align with the family life? Even though you could take the time off when you needed to.
It's I guess I just I realized, well, because I'd had postnatal depression when the kids were quite small, I'd learned from that. I mean, for me, that was the most amazing good thing to have had that depression, because I learned so much from it, and I learned not to push myself. I was in a high risk group because I'd had, I'd been working for a decade or more, and I'd had control in my life, and then suddenly I didn't have control when I had little kids. You know, it was just not going to happen. And so I had to let go of a lot of the expectations I had on myself. And I started doing, going to counselling and having some groups of mothers, and anger management was also really useful. So I was, look, it was just the most educational time in my life having the kids.
Yeah.
You know, it brought through so much that if I'd not had them, I would have not really expanded myself. It was they really opened me up to what was possible in life.
Yeah.
And they were just a huge blessing. And I just, I feel so grateful. I mean, at that age, to have had 3 kids was sort of I don't know, more and more women are doing that now, but it was, it was unusual. And I had, at the point I actually started, well, when I got married, I'd already, years earlier, at 26, I'd decided I wasn't going to get married and wasn't going to have kids. So it was a real surprise to find that, wow, these little beings are amazing. And they gave me purpose in life that I hadn't really felt before.
Yeah.
And, and then comes the time when they're grown where, I needed to find a purpose for myself. The purpose was no longer bringing them up. In fact, it was a time to let them go and find something for myself. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Michelle, but
well, I think that's amazing. And, we do learn so much from our kids, don't we? It's incredible. I always say it's the best job and the hardest job at the same time.
Exactly.
And we do learn so much. But I think it's amazing that you went and you received help as well to help you grow. Were there any kind of recurring thought patterns or anything that you really wanted to be doing instead of parenting, or other than art, which like when they were really small?
Well, yes. As I shared with you earlier, the running away was something. And that was because I had loved traveling when I was younger and unattached. And I was very fortunate. My parents' family had a farm that was about 3 hours south of Perth. So I used to get to a point. That sounds desperate. It wasn't like that really, but it was like, I really need to have some time out. And so I would go down to the farm and be on my own for 3 days. And Bruce is, pardon me, scratchy throat. Bruce is very, very capable and always been a hands-on dad, so that's been lovely. The kids will just as easily talk to him about things that are bothering them as they will to me, which I think is fabulous.
Yeah.
So I used to go away for a few days, and they used to ring, I'd ring them up sort of at bedtime, and we'd have a quick chat. And I mean, that is something that's probably so much more normal now with, mums and kids on their phones. But this was the phone on the wall, that was the dial one.
Yeah.
And so it was, you were never sure when you rang whether you would get anybody or whether anyone would pick up and that sort of thing. But so I used to have that feeling of wanting to run away and explore, find new things. That was still there. That was quite strong. And that's changed. Now I'm feeling more like the intellectual stimulation is more important. I've always been interested in other cultures and going to places to sort of learn about that. But I'm more inclined now to want to do it with somebody rather than on my own. Yeah, so that's the big difference. Yeah.
Interesting. With your kids? Or...
Yeah, well, for my husband's 70th birthday a couple of years ago, we went to Queensland, which is on the other side of Australia, and to Cairns. And, the 5 of us went and just had a really lovely time exploring. And, it was just so amazing with grown-up kids because I didn't want to drive the car. It was just too scary for me with it had all these, flashing lights and computerized voices and whatever, and the hire car. So I said, no, I don't want to. And the kids all drove, and Bruce drove, and I got ferried around, and that was fine.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
But it's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So, what do you dream of or long for now?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think I want to do more traveling. Yes, I'm really not quite sure. And I've reached a point where I need to do this again, look at what it is I want. We're at the point of needing to sell the house we live in, downsize basically. And so that's, to me, that's going to open up some financial, you know, um, what do you say? There's going to be some money we can spend on traveling and that sort of
Opportunity.
thing. Opportunity, yeah.
Opportunity.
So yes, rather than always being careful about it and all that sort of thing. So that's going to be nice. And the travel that I've done while the kids were young, I used to take them to the UK to visit their cousins and aunties and uncles and that sort of thing. So I'd take each child at 10 years old. And that was really lovely to do. And then I went over when they were, I don't know, in their late teens, went over with them, all three of them. And that was just so much fun. It was really good. And they were so capable, and I thought, oh, good, this is really great. They can sort of they can do this. And and they've all been interested in travel. Probably not so much my son, but the girls certainly have.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't actually want to. I think I want to travel more with my husband, just to do grown-up things where I don't have to think about anybody else. I can just kind of and also the thing that used to happen, because I had relatives in the UK and a sister in South Africa, we'd always go from Australia to the UK and then back through South Africa. And that was kind of the well-worn track, And although we went to see different interesting things in the UK, I thought, I want to go to France. I'd like to go to Turkey sometime. There's Canada I'd like to go to, and there's other places that don't have relatives, and I want to go there,
Great.
So anyway, actually, I am going somewhere. I'm going to Ethiopia in March next year.
That's quite an unusual destination.
Yes.
Amazing.
Well, I'm going to as part of a group of women going from I think mostly Australia. We've been supporting the Hamlin Obstetric Fistula Foundation. So if you want to have a look at that sometime, that's it's a chance to go and see the hospitals that they set up. Catherine Hamlin and her husband Reg set up in the 50s to treat women who had had obstructed labour and had developed fistula as a result of that. And so they've got this whole chain of chain of hospitals, about 4 or 5 hospitals, a rehabilitation centre, what's the other thing? Oh, midwifery college, because there are no, if there were midwives, these things wouldn't happen. The women would be able to get to the hospital. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, so that is my next adventure. Actually,
it's fantastic. I look forward to hearing more about that then. That's amazing. So what would you say your top takeaway is from your story? Like we're talking confessions of a working mum. Like, we know that it's hard. We know that it's amazing at the same time. What would your kind of top takeaway be for other mums listening?
Find something that lights you up, that is important for you as an individual, not dependent on whether it works out, whether your kids like it or your husband likes it or your partner or whatever, but to have something that really lights you up, because I used to love just once I got into a project. This is why my daughter was probably on the right track when she said we forgot about her, or I forgot about her, because I used to be able to stay up till 2 a.m, just, I'd just be able to, I was so inspired by the thing I was making or whatever, just so enjoying it, that it didn't matter. And usually I was, I'd be trying to be in bed by 10 o'clock at the latest. So, and sleep was so important when the kids were young and I didn't get enough and all that kind of thing. But I just found when I was doing this creative work, I could, making things, I could stay awake. Yeah. And I love doing it with other people as well. That was a lot of fun. I've got a few groups textile groups I belong to. So, yeah, I think that's the most important thing, to have something that is yours,
Mm,
you know,
yeah. That makes
whatever it is. We've got there's so much variety in our creativity. You know, there's so many ways we can express that.
yeah.
And, tree
Yeah.
planting, cooking, painting, sewing, all sorts of things, but
I love
really
it.
important to have something. Yeah.
Absolutely. Completely. Yeah, I
Mm.
completely agree with that. So my last question for you then, the fun one. So going back, rewinding a bit, I know you had a nanny, but I'm sure there were still reasons why this might apply. How much would you have paid for a fairy godmother to come and help you?
Oh boy. Yeah. That's an interesting one, because I never felt that we paid our nanny well enough.
Okay. Yeah.
We paid her the going rate,
Yeah.
but she was just so valuable, and she became an honorary grandma to the kids anyway.
Yeah.
Which was lovely, and she stayed with us for 8 years, so it was lovely. But yeah, how much? I don't know. There's no. How do you put a price on that? I mean, we were so fortunate to have this woman.
So maybe she was your fairy godmother.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she was lovely. She was a friend to me. She wasn't a friend before I met her, obviously, but we interviewed a few people, and we wanted someone who would stay for a few years, and we were thinking maybe 2 or 3. Anyway, she just grew with our kids, and they love her to bits, and they still, like my son rang her for her last birthday, because she'd be nearly 80 now, I think.
Wow.
And he rang her up and said, "Happy birthday." They had a
Lovely.
lovely chat, and she was really chuffed that he'd remembered her. And he said, "Yeah, of course,
That's really lovely.
They even called her mummy at one point when they were very small. And I remember somebody saying to me, "Whoa, how do you feel about that?" And I said, "I'm not worried about that, because for me, that just shows the emotion, the love is there, it doesn't matter."
That's good. Yeah.
So, yes.
Amazing.
So she was a fairy godmother.
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with us today. It's been really
welcome.
Lovely to chat with you and to hear it all. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's been delightful.
Thank you so much.
It's lovely.
You're listening to Confessions of a Working Mum. Much love and thanks goes to Iris for her time and courage to share her story today. If you're listening and thinking, this is me, the one who looks like she has it all together, but deep down is craving escape and time out, whilst holding guilt for wanting something for yourself outside of motherhood, I want you to know that I see you. You're not doing anything wrong, and you're not alone in this. These feelings are widespread. When everything has been set up in society for you to hold it all, of course it feels heavy. Of course you've lost parts of yourself along the way. But what if it didn't have to stay like this? What if you could have more calm, real support, space to breathe, and actually feel like you again every day, not just the version of you who keeps everything going? If something in this episode has landed for you, take that as your permission slip. And if you want a next step, something gentle to help you start creating that space, you can download my free Overload Reset or get a free personalized permission oracle reading. If you're ready to invest in deeper support for sustainable change, you can explore a 60-minute one-to-one mind massage with me, or step into Unshakable Mama's 4-month portal to peace, permission and possibility. These spaces are designed to help you stop living on autopilot and start creating the life you know is here for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. If you found it insightful, please subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and feel free to share with another working mum who needs to hear this today.